right. It's Friday. Oh, it's Friday the 13th, December 13th, morning, like I don't know, 8:45. It's maybe 40 degrees, 45 degrees. I'm actually not wearing a coat, just wearing a sweater and gloves. These gloves. Oh, so much to talk about. I think I'm gonna chat this whole ride. So let's see. Well, there's some crazy stuff going on. This Barnard student was stabbed to death just a few days ago on in the steps inside Morningside Park, which is like right where we live, on the other side, near on the east side of the park, or sorry, the west side of the park, near Columbia. And but this is now like the second day that the entire park is actually shut down. So the cops came, sort of flooded the whole area, which is good. But you know, sort of turned the whole, oh my God. There's a truck swerving around. They turned the whole park into basically a crime scene, you know, and so I think they're diving to find. Just wanna pause here. Look at this disaster, what's going on here. Like, what is this? What are you guys doing? You're all driving in the goddamn bike lane. Oh my God. So yeah, so that's what's going on in Morningside Park right now. So I think they caught some suspects. So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, the other day I was riding the subway home, and this woman got onto the subway, sat across from me, noticed my War on Cars, what I call it a bumper sticker. It's a sticker on my helmet from the War on Cars podcast, which I am a regular listener of. And she didn't know this, so she just saw a sticker on my helmet that said War on Cars, and just like was like, yeah, I hate cars. They should get rid of them. Get rid of them in the city. Da, 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 da. They're awful. They cause asthma. You know, people idle. It's terrible. They kill people. Like all this stuff. I'm like, oh wow, you're really enthusiastic about this. So we chatted for a while, and she was just like this very interesting woman who kind of chatted for a while about all kinds of, you know, her whole history, and raised in an orphanage. She picks up trash in the subway because she wants to keep everything clean. Literally, when she got off, like a bunch of stops later, she actually found some. She was telling me that she picks up trash in the subway, and she carries around a pair of like latex gloves or something because she doesn't want to touch the trash, and her hands are sensitive or something. She doesn't even like gloves, but she does it because she takes sort of pride in her neighborhood and in the subways and spaces in which she travels. I thought that was like, you know, just like what an amazing, you know, person to meet. And so she gets off the subway and literally finds like a cup on the ground, on the platform, like right at like 103rd Street or something, and a plastic bag on one of the little benches. And then she yells at me. She's like, look, you know, I got some trash. See, like as if to say, you know, I'm not bullshitting you, like I really do pick up trash. Yeah, what a charming person. Not you know, it's one of the benefits of You know, you ride the subway, as Elon Musk says, you know, with all the serial killers. But mixed in with all the serial killers are these really, you know, fabulous New Yorkers and people that you just meet along the way, that makes New York so special. So that was really cool. So I was like, well, let me film you. She said, let me take a picture of your helmet. So I remember this because this is so cool. And I was like, well, it's a podcast, so you should just listen to the podcast. And I was like, well, let me just take some video of you saying this, because this is like pretty funny. So took some video, posted it to Instagram. Didn't really think much of it. Got a little feedback from a friend, but basically the gist of it is, look, when you say the phrase war on cars, there's a lot to unpack there. To the uninitiated, to people who don't really follow any of the Safe Streets movement or any of the work, you know, that Families for Safe Streets has been up to, you know, and worked tirelessly on, Transportation Alternatives, Streets blog, the War on Cars podcast, like, and on, and on Twitter and everything else. Obviously, like, if you're not really following any of this, then you lose all the context, and you're just like, well, War on Cars clearly means you want to, like, eliminate 100% of vehicles, period. And that's not at all the purpose. It's just more of a, you know, pithy slogan that catches your attention and sort of gets to the heart of the matter. But really, it's a war on not cars. And I always make a point. So, like, when we do talk about this, we're talking about, it's a war on the vehicles, right? And the space that they take up, and the damage that they inflict, and the pollution that they emit in cities. You know, there's a lot of asterisks associated with this, which is like really what we're talking about is in urban, more dense spaces, right? In cities, most situations, cars really just don't belong in most situations, most scenarios, most spaces, most of the time, for most people in major cities. That's the bottom line. And we're talking about, I always make a point that we're talking about the war on cars, not drivers, right? Oh man, I'm a little tired. Let me just get over this hill here. I have an Instamic coming. It's a wireless microphone that I might be able to use for these recordings, so my audio will be a little bit better, be a lot less wind. We'll see. And so, yeah, one thing I always note is, like, whenever you see on Twitter or whatever, like, one time a cyclist did this, they almost ran me over. I see cyclists go through red lights, therefore all cyclists do this. They are a class of people. By simply riding a bike, you become, I guess, lumped into this entire group of people. And then I realized I did go through technically a red light, but this is a car-free park. And that's another subject for another day, about how the design here is still for cars, so it's incredibly confusing and stupid for cyclists, pedestrians, and joggers. Everybody else trying to use it. This car infrastructure, like these big traffic lights that change randomly, really make no sense for 99.9% of the vehicles and people. And so yeah, we hate it when you lump like all types of people, all cyclists do this, therefore or one cyclist did this, so therefore all do this, so therefore cyclists are bad. And I realize that you kind of I naturally do that for drivers too, and I've tried to catch myself because it goes the same way. You're like, well, these drivers, I see them all the time doing blah. They roll through stop signs, they intersection bully, they don't yield, they're constantly blocking bike lanes. It's all over the place. It's all drivers. And I recognize that it is not. It's not all drivers. It's actually like a small percent, but a small percent stand out. Even a tiny percent of the bad actors, right? It's the bad apples spoil the bunch. And I think that actually has different. Nice. Woman was juggling and running. I think it actually has multiple meanings. The spoil the bunch depends on the context. I think when you're talking about drivers, when one driver does something bad or reckless or like blocks a bike lane, it spoils the bunch, meaning it takes all the other drivers who are nearby who might have otherwise followed the rules or been a little bit more careful. And what they do is they see that behavior and they kind of follow it. It becomes herd mentality. So it really is the nature of that saying, which is one sort of ripples into the rest, and then you actually influence the behavior of others. And I think that's what happens with drivers. You know, when you see near City Hall, for example, I see a couple of people just parked in the bike lane, and then a whole bunch of other people just park right on in front, and I've seen videos where they get confronted and their response is frequently, oh well, like look back, like there's all these other people there, so like whatever, my marginal influence on this obstructed bike lane is negligible, right? Because like imagine one car ruins the entire bike lane. One car is blocking it, you basically have destroyed the entire block as a bike lane, because you, as a cyclist, you need to merge into traffic and then merge out of traffic, and it's just ridiculous. So really, it is true. It probably doesn't matter if 5 more cars take up the spaces in front and they all double park, and then it's just a giant double parking mess. But that's kind of the influence. It only takes one. Now cyclists, on the other hand, I think are very different. I think in this context, the bad apple ruins the bunch. Like a couple of cyclists who sort of do dangerous behavior, like going through crowds of people and not yielding, can inflict a lot of like reputation damage, right? Because people remember that, because they come into much closer contact with, I think cyclists are considered humans, right? When you're like, oh, I almost got hit by a bike, a cyclist, a person. There was a person, because you're literally physically next to a person when that happens. Whereas a car, you're like, I almost hit by a car. It's an inanimate object. You know, you kind of are disconnected, even though obviously it's controlled by a human, but you don't sort of argue, you don't instinctively think, well, that person almost hit me. It's that person controlling a vehicle, and the vehicle almost hit me, and they can't really control the vehicle. It's a vehicle, you know. And so there's, I think, a major disconnected like nature to it. But in that case, like, I am not influenced by good or bad cyclists. My behavior doesn't really change on that. I think the reputation of the class of people, of the group, is influenced, and that's you know, that's problematic. Back to the original kind of point, is that I think of drivers as drivers. It's not a war on vehicles, on drivers, it's a war on cars. I always say this whenever I pass people. I'm like, this guy or gal who's honking or swerving or speeding or doing something like otherwise really dangerous, I bet they're really nice. Do you know what I mean? It's not a judgment on the person directly, because I honestly do believe that. Like, I think people become psychotic behind the wheel of a car. Now, how psychotic you become is like a different question, right? The nature of your work, like if you're like one of these, like garbage truck driver or a taxi driver, something where speed is important, or you have to make your deliveries or whatever, or you're a private driver and you're like, I gotta get to work, or I gotta get to the whatever, the train station or something, or I gotta get home, I want to see my kids, whatever it may be. I think when you get behind the wheel of a car, it has an impact on you. Driving, the act of driving, being in a car, is like psychotic inducing. It's very different than getting into a subway and walking around and being like surrounded by other humans and people and seeing conversations, and it's very human nature to public transit, to groups of people walking, like right here on my left with the elves in the I guess a run group or something. And so I always say, like, this driver doing something nuts, doing something crazy, almost killing me, probably a nice person, probably has barbecues in his backyard with his 2 kids and his wife and in like Connecticut, and is like just a really kind person, really great guy to hang out with when, you know, when he's not in his car. But when you set up the scene, right, where a good-natured person is behind the wheel of a car, it's like the experiment, you know, where you have the guards, the Stanford prison experiment. You sort of assume this role, and you're like, yeah, I'm sort of disconnected. It's a vehicle, I'm on a road, only other cars are supposed to be on the road. When people are stopped, I'm gonna honk and get irritated because I'm in a car and cars are supposed to go fast. Look at all the, you know, all of the ads that I've seen where, you know, Elon Musk, like, saying his truck goes from 0 to 500 miles an hour with 1 billion torque, Newton pounds of, or whatever, no, it's Newton meters, but I guess in this case it's pound feet, pound foot of torque, because we don't do the metric system here. In any case, you know, you're like, yeah, I want to go from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat, which is insane. Like, that's not how cars should travel. I mean, maybe on a highway, but even then, like, really unsafe, really stupid. But on a dense street like this, you go from 0 to 30, you accelerate like that. Basically, there's no time to respond when there are tons of people around, and you'll just kill people. All right, so we're at 7th Avenue here. Just got through Central Park. Let's see. So yeah, the war on cars, to me, is really a war on the space that is allocated to cars, and our just blind dependence on cars. That's the issue, that we prioritize this, what I'm seeing here, 4 lanes, 6 lanes really, where you're parking all this stuff, but nothing, but like, look at the sidewalks. They're like these crammed piles of shit. Look over here at the left, you see all the scaffolding. On the right, you see scaffolding and all this stuff. You see, you know, you see all this stuff just in the way, because pedestrians can sort of deal with it. That's the assumption. So we throw more and more crap onto sidewalks, but we don't actually extend the sidewalks. This guy honking, getting through. Let's see, what's this guy doing? He's going all the way over. Okay. Another thing is like that's interesting is like, oh, I almost, it's anecdata, right? When you're like, wait, but I almost got hit by a bike. I was driving and a cyclist almost hit me. You're like, yeah, how many times, just do the physics, right? Consider the mass of a vehicle and the mass of a person on a bike, and right away you're like, there's like almost no. Ooh, I like that. Loud, super loud. Let's see if I can sneak through here. Just a little bit. This isn't that tight. It looks really, really tight here. I recognize this looks super, super tight, but it's not that bad. Like, how many cyclists have hurt the occupant of a car? Like, can you imagine how like I would love to see that on like Mythbusters. Like, how fast would I need to be riding on a bike into a vehicle in order to hurt, like, I would say even just impact the people inside a car, right? Oh, what's going on here? Nice. I don't really know what's going on. You know, I don't know, 100 miles an hour? I feel like this is a Mythbusters problem. You literally have to shoot a cyclist out of a cannon directly into like the windshield of a little car just to like make a dent, you know what I mean? Nobody has ever gotten hurt. No motorist has ever gotten hurt because a cyclist hit their car. You know what I mean? The only thing that happens in that case, literally every single time, is wow. See, this is what it should be. This is great. Like, look at all these people just walking. I love it. As they should. This should be pedestrianized. I am not bothered by people walking around in the street. I am a little bit bothered by my squeaking city bike, where I really don't know how. Here are the brakes. Hey, everybody knows I'm here. So here's a giant truck, DOT 102213. Just blocking the entire crosswalk. Like, look at this. Look at this. You know you're blocking the crosswalk? You know you're blocking the crosswalk. Yes, height 12 foot. Truck rental. So now people have to walk right at the hood of this truck to get through. And this guy is going 5 feet now because there's nothing but traffic right here. All right, cool. What are we doing? You go? You go? No? You're not gonna go. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, now you're gonna go. Okay. Thanks a lot. Nope. I'm taking up a lane, buddy. You're supposed to go slow. And I will definitely catch up with you. So like here you have a bike lane, but then you have an officer standing halfway in the bike lane. And this is where things get really, really dangerous. Because you got a billion people who don't realize how close they are to the cyclist, right? And he's swiping me through. Just gonna go right in here. Oh, I didn't make it. Yeah, that was me. And this whole area should be pedestrianized. I don't get why anybody fights this. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's just physics, right? You look at a car's like 3,000 pounds. Even going 1 mile an hour, it will crush you and kill you, right? We already know this. It already has. Left turning, right turning cars have killed children barely going like a few miles an hour, you know? And so here I have a, so here you can see I have a green light. Great. Made a ton of noise, and then what? Just sort of, I don't know what. So that's just, right, like absolute mismanagement. Oh, and this guy gunned it. XFF B87. See how many red lights you can go through. New Jersey plate. I realize I went through too, but here's the thing. If I'm going next to a truck like that, you gotta imagine when you're approaching a light that's about to turn red, and you just saw the way this guy behaved, you got that kind of person probably on your tail also. Well, in this case I don't, but I'm looking behind me here. So I did not have anybody behind me, but I've had, like, you know, as a cyclist, you often, and you're riding in traffic like this. Oh, another thing that I could talk about is, like, why am I even here? Like, why am I on this? Like, why am I complaining, right? This is not a street for cyclists. This is a street for cars. Like, why would I be here? This is a terrible place to ride a bike. It's so dangerous. It's because it takes like 30 minutes to get in. Like, where else am I gonna go? The other routes are terrible. I mean, I can take other routes, that's true, but that argument is such a weird argument, because it's like, oh no, we should, whoa, sorry, not paying attention. Although I do have the loudest brakes ever. This guy's on a bullet. That's good. By the way, I'm not going that fast, so it may appear as if that was a close call. It wasn't that, really wasn't that close. The argument that I've heard in these, like, community board meetings, like, oh, well, why don't the cyclists just go on these, like, 2 routes, you know, on the edges of the city, like on the outskirts of the city. Go on the West Side Highway. Just do it there. Don't go straight through Manhattan, where it's obviously, hey, how's it going? Where it's obviously more convenient. Like, this is a great intersection. Should be 1 lane of traffic in each way. Oh, what we're doing here. She's just like, what are we doing? Just waving, not looking, it's great. So I have to breathe in the fumes from Rohan's bus. Rohan's bus may or may not see me. Do you see me? Rohan's bus driver has headphones on. That's a great move. This guy doing something. This guy cutting across. So keep in mind these cars are all going at like 2 miles an hour. So they're not really, it's not a whole lot going on here. Although my thing is squeaking like crazy. But I like it. It alerts people. Like you don't want my crappy bike hitting your nice car. All right, and finally we are at 30th Street, where cars park, cops park on the sidewalk, right there in front of New York Penn Plaza, 160 West 30th Street. And where the bike lane actually officially starts. There you can see the 7th Avenue South protected bike lane, which will definitely be blocked by how many cars here? This Jersey driver who's coming through, this maroon sedan coming through, and then this silver Honda JFN 8632. Oh wow, three cars all blocking. Way to go, guys. And we blame the cyclist. It's the cyclist's fault for that. This is all a disaster, whether or not there's bike lanes. Like, that's the thing you gotta constantly remember, is that motorists die too. It has nothing to do with bikes or pedestrians or any of this stuff. Like, the people who should be most upset are drivers who just failed to yield. EXZ5801. It's okay, it's not a big deal. If you're standing in the bike lane with your parent or your mom or something, that's fine. I am going slow and it's easy for me to stop. My issue is with the drivers who don't yield. That is my issue. I think that they can get through just crazy amounts of traffic when they can't. All right, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. BikeTalk.NYC.